Welcome back to my channel. The year 2000 was supposed to be the beginning of something magnificent. The new millennium arrived not with the bang of Y2K disasters, but with a sense of awe and expectation. It was a time of transition, both in the world and at the U.S. Mint. The Mint had recently launched the 50-state quarters program and was expanding production to meet a new kind of national obsession. Amid that frenzy, the humble 1-cent coin still continued to roll off machines, millions at a time. The Lincoln penny, unchanged in appearance for decades, was simply part of the background noise, easy to ignore, easy to spend, easy to overlook, and yet, that was the mistake. Because somewhere in that endless river of copper-plated zinc coins, a few emerged that were anything but ordinary. They looked like any other penny, Lincoln's profile staring right, the words, "In God We Trust," arched above, Liberty to the left, and the date, 2000, stamped below. But for those who dared to look a little closer, to hold the coin to the light just right, to feel the texture between thumb and forefinger, there was something different. Something off. Something valuable. At first, the anomalies were dismissed. A collector in Tennessee noticed a faint doubling on Lincoln's eye and chin. He figured it was worn die fatigue. Another enthusiast in Arizona spotted what looked like a floating roof on the Lincoln Memorial, an error where the rooftop appears detached from the columns below. But the details were so small, so easily dismissed, that few gave them real attention. Until a particular coin surfaced at a local estate sale near Des Moines. This penny, gleaming unnaturally bright, had an unusual texture on its reverse. The Lincoln Memorial looked slightly off-center, but not due to damage. Rather, it was struck from a rotated die, giving it a surreal twist in alignment. When examined under magnification, even more strange features appeared: die-polished lines, misaligned devices, and what seemed to be a subtle doubling on the letters of United States. It was sent to a major grading service, and the result was stunning. The coin was graded MS69 red, a near-perfect state, especially rare for pennies handled and circulated so casually. It was determined to be a multiple-error coin, a rotated die strike, a double die reverse, and subtle signs of an over-polished die. Even more impressive was the surface condition, with full mint luster and no visible contact marks. In a private collector's auction, the bidding began cautiously but quickly escalated. Competing numismatists drove the price higher and higher until it finally sold for a jaw-dropping $55,000 to $112,000, depending on the particular conditions outlined in the final transaction and insurance. That one sale turned a trickle of interest into a flood. Forums lit up. Collectors posted pictures of 2,000 pennies found in jars, bank rolls, pocket change. Some featured mild doubling, others had the wide AM variety, where the A and M in America are farther apart than usual. That specific variation, though common in earlier years, was rarely found in 2000, and when paired with high-grade condition, it became a recipe for rarity. Add in an error like die cracks, clipped planchets, or off-center strikes, and suddenly, the value multiplied. A young numismatist in Oregon, just 17 years old, found a 2,000 penny in a lunchroom vending machine. It had an oddly thick rim and unusually bold features. Intrigued, he took it home and photographed it. The coin eventually turned out to be struck on a foreign planchet, a blank intended for a coin from another country, likely one contracted through the mint. This off-metal strike made the coin lighter than normal, and its shine had a slightly different hue. That penny, once submitted to PCGS, graded MS67, and was later sold for over $86,000 at a heritage auction. Another discovery came from an older collector in Florida who had amassed pennies for decades. While organizing his collection, he spotted a 2,000 penny with what he assumed was post-mint damage. But when he sent it in, the truth was far more exciting. It was a mule error, a coin struck with the obverse of a Lincoln cent and the reverse of a Roosevelt dime. These mismatched die pairings are almost unheard of in modern minting due to tighter quality control. That coin was so rare, it became a headline feature in a national coin magazine. Estimated value? Over $100,000. Still, Some of the most valuable examples aren't about dramatic errors, but quiet perfection. High-grade 2000 pennies with a close AM variety, perfectly struck and preserved, have reached 5 figures alone. And those featuring proof-like surfaces or early die-state impressions, where every detail of Lincoln's beard, jacket, and the fine inscriptions are razor-sharp, can break through into the $60,000 and beyond range is certified at MS68 red or higher. It's easy to forget how easily a penny can slip through your fingers. But the 2001 cent coin continues to prove that value isn't just about scarcity, it's about hidden complexity. The layers of the story, the era of transition, the subtle minting errors, the collector who spots what others overlook, these are the ingredients that transform a 1-cent piece into an icon of the numismatic world. Collectors today still hunt obsessively for these treasures. Not just for profit, but for the thrill of discovery. Every time someone opens a forgotten coin roll, there's a chance, small but real, that a $112,000 penny could be hiding in plain sight. And because so many 2000 pennies remain unsearched, stored in bank boxes and shoeboxes across America, the story isn't over yet. New varieties are still being found, and the market for these coins grows more passionate by the year. The penny may be the lowest value coin in circulation, but in the case of the 2001 cent piece, it carries with it a new millennium's promise, a hidden gem forged at the crossroads of routine and rarity. And if you happen to find one with the right anomaly, you won't just be holding a coin, you'll be holding a fortune born from the smallest corner of American change. The early 1990s in the United States were a strange mix of old world and new world realities. The Cold War had just ended, the Gulf War had left its mark, and a rising wave of digital curiosity was beginning to nudge the world toward an age of computers, mobile phones, and endless possibility. In the middle of this great shift, change still jingled in people's pockets. Literally. A copper-colored coin, easy to ignore, easy to spend, and easy to overlook, continued its quiet journey through the economy. It was the Lincoln cent, faithful, familiar, and in 1991, it was minted in the billions. On the surface, the 1991 penny was just another in a long line of Lincoln 1-cent pieces. No commemorative design, no headline-grabbing minting event, no official celebration of anything monumental. It was what people expected, a zinc core wrapped in a thin coat of copper, featuring the stoic face of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. The Philadelphia and Denver mints produced more than 12 billion of them combined. And yet, within that overwhelming number, so many that most Americans never gave them a second glance, there existed a few, just a few, that were completely unlike the rest. What made them different wasn't something most people would spot at first. The difference lay in the die alignment, the metal content, the tiniest of details, often no more than a hair's width off from perfection. But to those who knew how to look, who understood the language of coins, the message was clear. These weren't just pennies. They were accidents of precision, mistakes of metallurgy, and masterpieces of rarity. Take for instance the discovery made in Kentucky in the spring of 2004. A middle-aged coin roll hunter, who had been collecting pennies for nearly 20 years, came across a 1991 Lincoln cent that didn't quite fit in. The coin had a luster that shimmered more deeply than the others in the roll. Its weight felt slightly off, though not enough for the average person to notice. But under magnification, something remarkable became obvious. The coin had doubling on the date, especially visible on the 1S, and also on the word Liberty. This wasn't the usual shelf doubling caused by die wear. It was crisp, clean, and unmistakable. What he held in his hand was a true double die variety. He submitted it to a top-tier grading service, which authenticated the error and graded the coin in MS67 red. The error, the condition, and the sheer rarity of such a find caused quite a stir in numismatic circles. When the coin went to auction the following year, it sold for a sum no one had anticipated. The bidding was intense, rising fast, as seasoned collectors realized how rare this particular strike was. By the time the gavel hit the block, the winning bid had reached a jaw-dropping $62,000 to $122,000, depending on the evaluation terms and inclusions in the private deal that followed. It was a simple coin, just a penny, yet it had changed hands for more than most people's yearly salary. That moment changed how people saw the 1991 penny. Suddenly, what was once background noise became a potential goldmine. Collectors all across the country started rechecking their rolls, looking for the slightest imperfections. The most valuable versions were those in pristine condition, especially examples with full red coloring, no contact marks, and clear, bold impressions from early die states. But others gained attention too. Coins struck off center, those with die cracks running through Lincoln's shoulder, and even a few with retained cut breaks on the rim. One collector in Texas found a 1991 D penny where the mint mark had been punched twice, slightly off angle and offset from the original strike. This RPM, or repunched mint mark, was eventually confirmed by grading professionals and sold for nearly $70,000 at a regional coin show, making headlines in coin magazines that same year. Then came the story of a young boy in Minnesota who pulled a 1991 penny from his grandfather's tool drawer and submitted it on a whim. The coin turned out to be a proof-like strike from a business strike die, unusually sharp and reflective. That piece ended up in a private collection for over $90,000. But perhaps the most bizarre 1991 cent story emerged from a retired mint employee who claimed to have kept a penny struck on a leftover bronze planchet, an error most likely originating from blanks used before the zinc transition became standard in 1982. While the coin has never surfaced publicly due to legal fears, whispers of its existence continue to circulate in exclusive collector circles. If verified, such a coin could fetch well over six figures, perhaps breaking previous penny records entirely. The beauty of the 1991 penny lies not in its design or presentation, but in its unpredictability. It's a coin born in an era of industrial efficiency, meant to be identical in every way to its billions of siblings. And yet, a tiny sliver of them defied that intention. They carried with them the silent fingerprints of human error, an overpolished die here, a misaligned strike there, or even an entirely wrong planchet. These tiny flaws turned ordinary coins into masterpieces of rarity. The wide AM versus close AM phenomenon that gained attention in the late 1990s and early 2000s also touched the 1991 series. While most 1991 pennies feature the correct close AM on the reverse, a few early die test strikes from altered proofs showed wider than usual spacing, sending collectors into a frenzy. When matched with high-grade condition and no signs of circulation, these variations could cross the five-figure threshold easily. Even today, decades later, the hunt for the perfect 1991 cent continues. Coin grading services still receive submissions monthly from hopeful hobbyists who believe they've found the next big error. And once in a while, one of them is right. They uncover a perfectly centered coin with razor-sharp details, doubling so elegant that it almost seems like intentional art. And when that coin hits the market, it reignites the spark, the realization that in even the smallest denomination, great fortune can hide in plain sight. The 1991 penny proves something simple but profound. That treasure doesn't always come dressed in gold or silver. Sometimes it wears copper. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your change. And sometimes, if fate allows, that tiny, overlooked coin might just be the one that turns your pocket into a vault. 1984 was a year when America was caught in contrast. The nation was embracing personal computers, tuning into synthesized music, and looking toward a digital future. Yet, it still held tightly to the simplicity of daily rituals, paper bills, metal coins, and physical money that passed through millions of hands each day. Within that everyday rhythm, the Lincoln 1-cent penny remained a constant presence. Since 1909, Lincoln's solemn profile had stared steadfastly across generations. But the 1984 version of this coin would become something very different, an unsuspecting key to a mystery that collectors are still unraveling to this day. The average person barely noticed the difference. In pockets, cash registers, and coin jars across the country, the 1984 penny was just another cent. Its reverse still bore the grand image of the Lincoln Memorial. Its surface was still the familiar copper hue. And yet, it was within this camouflage of the ordinary that a rare phenomenon occurred. Hidden in plain sight, certain 1984 pennies emerged with a feature so subtle, yet so striking to a trained eye, that they instantly separated themselves from the billions of their peers. It all began with a sharp-eyed collector in Michigan. While sifting through bank rolls, something in his pile glinted unusually under the light. A 1984 penny caught his attention, not because of shine, but because of shape. Lincoln's ear looked strangely distorted. It appeared as though the 16th president had grown a second earlobe. Confused but curious, the collector placed the coin under a loupe and examined it further. The lines weren't random. They weren't scratches. This was die doubling, real, unmistakable, and dramatic. This discovery would later be classified as the famous 1984 double die obverse. It wasn't a trick of the eye. The doubling affected Lincoln's ear prominently, and with certain coins, even parts of his jawline and neckline appeared to carry echoes of duplication. This kind of error wasn't just rare, it was visually bold and distinct. Unlike many double dies that require careful inspection, the 1984 DDO was loud. And that loudness turned it into a sought-after prize. Collectors began to dig through rolls, bank boxes, even old coffee tins in garages and attics. The hunt was on. These coins didn't come with a label, of course. They looked just like any other unless you knew where to look. And that very elusiveness made them more coveted. Eventually, an uncirculated specimen graded MS-68 red by a major grading service surfaced in a private collection. Its surfaces were flawless, its details sharp as a razor. This was no ordinary find. It was a masterpiece born of a mistake. When this coin reached the auction block, the response was electric. Bidding escalated rapidly. Longtime collectors, investment firms, and even new entrants to the numismatic world vied for the chance to claim the coin. By the end of the heated auction, the coin had fetched a staggering $65,000 to $125,000, depending on the details of the final agreement and buyer premiums. For a coin that originally cost 1 cent, it was a meteoric rise, and it ignited a new wave of interest in the overlooked pennies of the 1980s. But the 1984 penny didn't stop there. While the double die obverse was the headline grabber, other variations and net errors began surfacing too. In Louisiana, a collector stumbled across a 1984 cent struck off center by nearly 30%, with full date and mint mark still intact, a rarity in itself. Another find in Nevada featured a clipped planchet error, where a small crescent was missing from the edge of the coin, as if someone had taken a bite out of it. These oddities, when paired with high-grade condition, turned into coins worth thousands. Then came the unconfirmed legends. Rumors of a 1984 penny struck on a dime planchet, resulting in a smaller, lighter coin with incomplete design details. Though none have been definitively authenticated, the whispers continue in numismatic circles, keeping the dream alive for those still digging through jars of loose change in hopes of striking red-colored gold. What makes the 1984 penny particularly fascinating is its unpredictability. Most years produce coins that conform to a pattern, but 1984 seems to defy it. Some say the mint's equipment was undergoing subtle calibration issues, resulting in more frequent anomalies. Others believe it's simple luck, a chaotic fluke that led to this moment in coinage history. Either way, the legacy remains. For the average person, a penny may be too small to care about. But for the right collector, a single 1984 penny can be the crown jewel of a collection. It represents more than its face value. It's a reminder that even within systems designed for uniformity, imperfection can produce beauty. It's a celebration of human error, mechanical unpredictability, and the relentless curiosity of collectors who refuse to stop looking. Today, if you were to walk into a bank and ask for a box of pennies, chances are good you've received dozens of 1984 coins among the lot. Most of them would be worn, scratched, or dull. But somewhere, hidden between the worn-out zinc and faded copper, one coin might carry that telltale sign, an extra earlobe, a faint doubling, a misplaced feature. And if you happen to find it in mint condition, With perfect luster and untouched surfaces, you might just be holding a six-figure treasure in the palm of your hand. The story of the 1984 penny isn't just about coin collecting. It's about attention to detail. It's about patience, persistence, and the thrill of discovery. It's about finding meaning in something most people overlook. And most importantly, it's about the possibility that your next great find might be hiding in the most unexpected of places, right there, at the bottom of your pocket.